Dublin in 1916 became one of the iconic examples of a major metropolis destroyed through warfare, specifically artillery. The planners of the 1916 Rising took two main tactical precedents for their plans: the 1803 rebellion of Robert Emmet and the Paris Commune of 1870. Emmet's rebellion was largely inspirational, even aspirational. Pearse was enamoured by the example of Emmet, but Joseph Mary Plunkett, the primary military strategist of the Rising, looked to the example set by the communards. These tactics centred on the idea of seizing and holding Dublin, awaiting a military response. Another example of this kind of action was the now little remembered Battle of Sidney Street, which occurred in London's East End in January of 1911. Here, a small group of revolutionary anarchists, led by a man colloquially known as Peter the Painter, held out against a vastly superior number of police and military for a significant period of time. The then Home Secretary, Winston Churchill, arrived on the scene to assist in directing operations. In a precedent that would have devastating consequences 5 years later in Dublin, Churchill authorised the use of artillery on the barricaded building. Ultimately, flames and not shells dislodged the defenders, but the Battle of Sidney Street remained a crucial precedent for both rebels and military when the 1916 Rising broke out. Between Sidney Street and Paris, the tactics of seize and hold had worked. Not militarily, but they provided a method by which forces inferior in numbers and munitions could hold out and provide credible resistance to a large and well-trained modern military. These were the precedents in Joseph Mary Plunkett's mind as he walked the streets of Dublin, contemplating its capture. Historians now consider whether the choice of strongholds in Dublin in 1916 was tactical or ideological. On a tactical level, the plan was to create a ring of steel around strong and defendable locations in the city. Ideologically, the Post Office had refused to handle Irish mail. The South Dublin Union had been dubbed Ireland's Bastille by Connolly. The forecourts represented an alien justice, and Jacobs and Boland's factories were supplying rations for the war effort. No military barracks existed within the circle created by the 4 battalions of the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizen Army at St. Stephen's Green. One of the key aspects of the Paris Commune copied by the Dublin rebels was that the expected form of military response was cavalry rather than artillery. Barricades were erected across the city outside rebel strongholds. These were impenetrable to cavalry and would seem to be a logical countermeasure. Indeed, the first military response to the seizure of the GPO was cavalry. Lancers of the 6th Cavalry Reserve Regiment came onto the scene from the north end of O'Connell Street and were successfully repelled. However, by Wednesday of Easter week, artillery became the primary means of dislodging the rebels. Guns from Trinity College, alongside the gunboat Helga, which sailed up the Liffey, began to transform dramatically the Dublin skyline, having a withering effect on the rebels and a catastrophic effect on Dublin's civilian population. Ernie O'Malley, a medical student at UCD during the Rising, later recalled how a uniformed Irish Citizen Army officer told him during Easter week, "We are trying to blow up the pillar," referring to Nelson's Pillar, now the site of the spire on O'Connell Street. "It's too good a guide to warships in the bay, or to artillery over there," referring to the Trinity garrison. Dublin smouldered in the aftermath of the Rising. While historians often turn their focus to courtrooms and internment depots, there is much to be learnt by examining the ruined city itself in the aftermath of hostilities. O'Connell Street, Sackville Street suffered the worst damage. The GPO lay in ruins, and its reconstruction would not be completed until the mid-1920s. It would not be the final bout of devastation, as Ireland faced into 7 more years of conflict.